Hello, Scott here, and welcome to a new episode of Other Record Labels. You know, in a couple of weeks, we're interviewing a label that's been around for decades, and it's a cool interview. But today's interview is with a label that's only been around for a very short while, and it is also a very cool interview. And I like that diversity. I like going between labels who have been around for decades and labels who've maybe been around for just a decade or just under a decade, and then labels who are just in the process of starting up and the challenges that come with that. And I think that's almost more relatable to some of our listeners as a lot of us are in the early stages of starting an indie label and face a lot of the same challenges. So I'm excited today to talk with Sophie from Biblioteka Records, and we're going to go all into that. Speaking of starting a label and being in the early stages of running a label, I know you've heard this before, but I wanted to mention it again. We just came out with this little free guide for indie DIY record labels, which is also pretty relevant to DIY artists. And I know we have some artists out there who aren't necessarily involved in a label, but like to kind of eavesdrop on this topic. So go to otherrecordlabels.com and you can download this free guide, which basically there's a few articles that have been written by some of the people that we've interviewed. I emailed them this summer and asked them to contribute to this free guide, and they did. And then there's also some of our interviews over the past 2 years that a lot of the important stuff has been distilled into this booklet. So go to otherrecordlabels.com to check it out. And I really hope that you enjoy today's episode. Listen, let's dive in. The label's called Biblioteka. Did I say that right?
Yeah, Biblioteka Records.
Is that like, what does that mean? Because like I think of like bibliothèque, like the French word for library. Am I close?
Yeah, it means library in Russian.
Oh, in Russian. Oh.
Yeah, but I feel like in a lot of languages that same sounding
it must be
word means library stuff. Because like we took French class in school too, and people were like, oh yeah, bibliothèque. Like I know what that means because I took French class in grade 4. And I was like, you're on it. That's why the logo is a book, right? I was like, I don't know what else to put.
Oh, okay. So Biblioteka is Russian. Are you Russian?
Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, I was born there. I'm not just like one of those random people that's like weirdly into Russia. Although I do know a couple people like that.
Oh yeah, Trump is weirdly into Russia.
Yeah, like come on, calm down. Like leave us alone. You know? We got our own thing going on over there.
So it means library records.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, so what does that mean to you? Why did you pick that name? I'm kind of just fascinated by it.
When I originally started the label, it wasn't really a label. I originally started as like an events company because I used to throw a lot of parties. Okay. So I mostly just
parties at the library.
Yeah, no, study group. Yeah, and I was working with my friend at the time, and she's also Russian. And we were like, oh, it'd be kind of funny if we like thought of like a Russian joke name, and that way we would know what it meant, and then it would just still sound cool. Yeah. And then we just came up with that. I think I did, and then we were like too lazy to think of another name, so we were like, okay, whatever, let's keep it. And then we both kind of ended up going in different directions, but I still wanted to keep the name and keep doing things. And even though I stopped throwing that many parties or like ragers as opposed to kind of the events that I do now, I wanted to self-release a project. And I had intended to use the name like Biblioteka Productions, which it was originally when I was doing events. Okay. And I was like, well, I'll just use that as the label. And then I was like, no, I'm just going to switch the whole thing over and just make it a full label project. Right. Yeah, but now things came full circle.
A label can do events. You know.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't want to like strip myself too thin by trying to throw like parties and trying to release music. And I was like, well, I don't know how much music of my own I'm going to release. So I'd rather be able to focus on other people's music and like really give it the energy. Okay, so you switched from events to a record label because, correct me, because you wanted to self-release your own project. Is that right? Yeah. I basically just wanted to have like the backing of a label so it looked legit and have a logo on, because I wanted to do a cassette. Okay. Which didn't end up working out. Okay. Because I hated all the music after. But you kept the label. So you didn't do a self-release? But I kept the label name, yeah. I did release like a couple of singles on it. Yeah. Like when I originally started. And then I was like, no, I can help other people. Like I can focus on other people's music more. Well, honestly, I haven't recorded my own music in a long time.
Wow. I mean, that's very generous of you, because the story that you have of a label forming out of a way to self-release music, that's how I started my label. And I think that's more than half of the labels we talk to start that way. It was kind of generous of you to kind of shift. Like, what was that? How did that selfless act happen to just say, I'm more interested in championing other artists than myself?
I mean, that was kind of what I wanted to do when I was throwing events too, is like promote other DJs and performers and give people that don't normally get the spotlight. This was just a different way of doing it. And like, I always knew that being a small indie label, like there was no way I could like propel somebody like the radio, right?
Right.
But I wanted to also focus on like instrumental music and kind of like the niche stuff that I really like, but I don't feel often gets recognized. And I feel like the people on my label like kind of do struggle with would struggle with finding other labels to accept their music. Like, yeah, there's a lot of niche labels now, but I think that in general, instrumental music is a pretty difficult market. And even the labels that do focus on electronic music, a lot of them focus on dancey stuff. And the stuff on Biblioteka is more or less just like chill music to vibe to, or it's like pretty left field and experimental.
Yeah.
And there's not always a place for that in the world, but people still want to have like that legitimacy of having a label backing or like some sort of logo on their project or somebody helping them release stuff. Because a lot of the artists I work with, like they don't understand how to get their music on Spotify.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You're
like
right.
People don't know how to do that. So it's nice to be able to help people.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And there's also something I've found with artists and even myself is there's just something encouraging to know that you have like you've formed a team or you have this collective family behind you. It's just something that keeps you going a little bit.
Yeah, the support. And that was kind of my original intent when I decided to shift to like a full label process, is to create a, I guess collective would be the word, of people that wanted to work with each other and support each other's music. And I feel like I've achieved that because a lot of the times the artists on the label will just remix each other's stuff without me asking them to.
Oh, cool.
Like they'll listen to each other's music and like remix each other's stuff.
Wow.
So, and that's kind of all I wanted, was like that family atmosphere where everybody helps each other and there's no competition, because it's such a small niche market of weird music that why wouldn't you all like each other's stuff?
Yeah, exactly. And I found that any competition that happens with roster members is more, it's like not even a friendly competition. It's just a way to drive each other, you know, like it's just accountability. It's like, oh, so-and-so wrote 3 songs this month. I should probably get writing too, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, like everyone on the label kind of has their own process. Like I pretty much just let people do whatever they want. I just give them that support of a label. I listen to their music. I help out with mastering and stuff when I have to, because some people do their own. Sorry, what was I saying?
I don't know.
Yeah, no, the like the competition aspect. I was saying that, sorry, everybody kind of does their own thing. Like I have artists that release albums quite regularly and music very regularly, and some people that just kind of put out singles whenever they want.
Okay.
To them, the music, they look at it as just a hobby.
So wait, now let's camp on this for a second, because I love the topic of prolific artists. Now so and going back to this weird genre a little bit in electronic music, artists can be a little bit more prolific because they don't necessarily have to wait on session musicians or studio time. It all happens in their own mind and on their laptop in some way. And so from your standpoint as a label, do you encourage the artist to be prolific? Can an artist just send you a new track once a month and say, I want to continue to put this out? Or do you ever have to put the brakes on it or suggest that they maybe edit themselves a little bit?
I mean, I definitely listen to the music, and if I have notes, I'll throw them forward. And I try not to oversaturate each month with scheduling. So if somebody was like, I want to release this month, I'd be like, I can't because I have so much stuff going on this month, but maybe the next month, because I try to like keep the schedule so there's not so much stuff happening all the time. That's great. This summer's pretty busy, so it might be a lot more than I'm used to, but
okay.
But I try not to have like 5 releases in a week, you know what I mean? Or even 2 in a week, because that's just a lot.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and it's like, I mean, you got to give a spotlight to the record or the release. And not,
of the moment.
Yeah, and not let them like cannibalize each other or whatever.
Yeah, and like with a small label, like with stuff coming out all the time, I mean, it's good to have content, but I also want to like give each new release the attention that it deserves and spend some time like mailing it to blogs and promoting it online and stuff like that.
So when you started a label to self-release your own stuff and then release other people, like had you been a fan of labels before? Like what I mean, you wanted that legitimacy, that logo. I was the exact same way with my first EP. I just wanted a fake logo on the back. But like, had you been interested in labels before? Is that something you were like aware of or had followed labels?
I was aware of labels like as a music consumer.
Right. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I'm a big fan of Warp Records, so I pretty much listen to everything on their catalog, and same with Planet Mu, just because I really like Aphex Twin and all that. In terms of like my personal interest or like as an industry person, I always felt that I was really good at like finding new music.
Right. Okay.
And I was like, why not take that ability and kind of like do A&R, quote unquote, for my own project and
That's
support people that I think are good.
That's a good point, because every friend circle has that one person who's always like recommending obscure indie music.
Yeah, and that person's playlist always slaps, right?
Yeah,
I wanted to be that person and champion that music before anyone else.
I was always I was actually thinking about this the other day about how annoying I probably was to my friends, but I was always that person who would get picked up on a Friday night to go out, and I would bring a CD with me, and I'd be in the back seat of the car. I'd be like, here, put this on. And I just, you know what I mean? Like before we could like Bluetooth or whatever. But anyway, I just remember always like pushing music on my friends. Yeah,
same. I was always that. Well, I mean, when I was younger, I was really secretive with my music. Like up until I was like maybe 15 or 16, I was very much like, oh, it's my like secret song.
Right.
Like I'm never going to share with anyone because I spent so long looking for my secret music. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But then, I was very protective of it. I think a lot of us were when we were in high school. And then as I got older, I was like, no, I have to share this music with people. And then I'd always like, when we were driving, I'd be like, give me the aux cord. At parties, I'd like unplug people's phones and put in my phone. Like I would always like demand to be in charge of the music. Because I'd be like, you guys have to hear it. Which I realized is like a super annoying trait, which is why I started DJing. Because I was like, well, I need to do this some way or another. And this way nobody can stop me.
And then they pay you for it. Yeah. No, that's a good point.
Yeah.
and so you were DJing like, and that was like with the events that you were doing before the label, right?
Yeah, I was DJing a little bit then. Like I wasn't good. But of course I'm going to book myself. Like part of the reason I even started throwing the events was because nobody would book me and my friends. So we were like, well, let's just do our own parties.
Yeah.
I mean, I think all of my projects came out of a like need, a necessity. Like nobody was booking us. So we started throwing our own parties. Nobody would release my music. So I started my own label. Nobody would release other people's music. So I wanted to find a way to do it myself.
That's such a great story. I know of artists who get defeated by being turned down by blogs or turned down by labels, and then their music just sits on their hard drive. So that's a great motivation.
Yeah, that's like the saddest thing I've ever heard. Like all this music that nobody gets to hear, like it breaks my heart. I get sad thinking about all the music that's released that I'm never going to hear all of it, you know?
Yeah. I no, that's a good point. I've occasionally thought of that too. And I think also about like, you know, some of the artists that submit records to us, and it's all over the board. I mean, some of it, a little bit of it is great. Some of it is horrific, and then most of it is just good. Like most of it's just fine. Like it's nothing, and that always kind of makes me sad because it's like it's not good enough for me to like jump up and call them and start a label relationship and dedicate 6 months to a year of my time to promote them, but it's that doesn't mean it's bad. It just means it's not exactly what I need or what I'm looking. Yeah, exactly. And that kind of bums me out. I feel kind of bad for them.
Yeah, I always hate sending out the emails that are like, sorry, it's not for us. But a lot of the times I get submissions that are just genre-wise, like not right for the label.
Yeah.
Like I'll get like rap submissions and like country stuff. And like, it'll be good, right? Like I'm like, I vibe with it. But I'm not going to release it because it's not what I do.
Yeah.
And I always like email people back and I'm like, this is not right for us, but it's dope and you should keep it up.
Keep
like
it
I
up.
try not
That's
to,
nice.
let people down gently, right? Because just because I don't like it or whatever, doesn't mean that somebody else won't.
Totally. Yeah, totally.
And that's kind of how I look at with like everything that I do, is that I don't care if people don't like my music because I like it, and there's going to be someone else that will like it.
Well, and I sure hope there's somebody out there who's starting a record label for middle of the road country musicians. And hopefully they do find a home.
I hope that somebody just gets tired of like being rejected and starts their own project and puts out like the dopest country music ever.
Yeah. I don't want to talk about the dopest country music right now. So, listen, okay, so let's go back to starting a label. And I mean, like you and I, it sounds like we have kind of a similar history with the label. And I remember kind of that seizure of excitement when starting it. Can you tell me, like, what did you first do when you said, okay, this is it, I'm going to start a label, I'm going to self-release? Did you just Google that, like how to start a label? Like, what resources did you have at the time to help guide you?
Yeah, so I did Google it and I read some blog posts and I was like, okay. And then I made a website.
That wasn't helpful?
It was okay. It was pretty helpful, but a lot of the blog posts assumed you had money.
Oh, yeah.
Right, which I didn't.
Like any amount of money? Like, or like a
I had like no
specifically-
money.
No.
Like,
I don't mean you. I'm not asking you. I mean, like, did the blog like suggested, like expected you to have like what, like a couple $1,000s or something?
Yeah, I think they kind of expected you to start off with that, and I had like $20. So
I'd say, yeah, of course, same.
So the first thing I did was I read some blog posts and I was like, all right, well, like if I take away the money aspect, the advice isn't bad. And then I bought a couple books like used that were like that Music of Business book, the Canadian version. Okay. And then I bought another book about like 2 books about starting a record label, which I only read chapters of. Okay. Like the chapters that are about like finding artists and like how to promote and stuff like that.
And was it helpful?
Which were I found them pretty helpful. Yeah. Like I still kind of reference the book sometimes. But then after that, the first thing I did was make a website. Okay. Like, DIY my own website on Squarespace because I don't know how to do that. Yeah. And then I bought business cards. And what I would do is like go to networking events all the time every evening after my 9 to 5 and just try to meet people and be like, hey, I have a record label. Like, I'm looking for artists, or like, I'm just looking for someone to like, because you never know who you're going to meet, right? Like you don't know if you could meet. I actually ended up meeting a really cool DJ who got me into a club for free a bunch of times, which was dope.
Wow, that's
like,
great.
And obviously this is not like a superb business connection, but it was a good friend to make.
Oh man, like I have a hard time leaving the house, and I have a harder time like speaking to strangers at venues. But I definitely, the times that I have gone out of my comfort zone in the music business, it's always paid off, and it's
it sucks, it's scary, but like you got to do it.
Totally, and it's amazing how quickly you can become friends with someone.
Yeah, you literally just need to like find 2 things in common. That's why I'm really good at job interviews. Like
find 2 things in common. Yeah, that's good. No, that's fair. So, okay, so you had a book and you did some blog, but basically you just kind of dove right in.
Yeah, I basically, ever since I started the label in October, like 2017, I've been kind of figuring out my way through. Like I still don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, no. I mean, you've heard the podcast. Everybody says that. Like huge labels that I interview like say that. It's crazy.
Yeah, nobody knows. Nobody knows what's going on because every day is so different. Like I could be onboarding an artist, and like only now after 2 years of working with like 10 or 11 artists, I've managed to figure out like some processes that work for me and make the process more like of onboarding someone new and like going forward with them more streamlined. Yeah, right. But it doesn't make it easier. Yeah. Yeah. Because I still have a lot of ideas. Like I have a whole notebook of ideas of stuff I want to implement later, or like stuff the label's just not ready for. And like it's a lot. I'll be getting like emails from different artists every day because at the same time I'm basically kind of like quote unquote managing them because I'm their only point of contact with the label.
I know. Yeah, totally.
So I'm like, oh my God. Then I got to remember what everybody's up to. Yeah. Yeah. And like I use a lot of calendar paper.
Yeah, I know what you mean. That is a good point, actually. And I kind of want to ask that of other labels now that I think about it, is like, because, most artists who aren't at a certain level don't have a manager. And so if you're the only one coaching them and advocating for them, then they just kind of, they just like, they just instantly treat you
everything
like a manager.
Everything, they'll come to me. They'll be like, here's my new song. What do you think? And I mean, that I get. It'll be like, I'm thinking of doing a video. No. And like, I'm trying to figure this stuff out too, like licensing, deals, all this type of stuff that is very new to me as well. And I try to be very transparent with the artists too, especially when we get new ones. Like I try to be like, hey, listen, like heads up, I don't know what I'm doing. And nobody else on the label really does either. So this is a learning process for both of us.
Right.
And like, we'll figure it out together. But if you want like someone that's going to like walk you through the steps and introduce you to like big ups people, that's not me. And like, most people are pretty cool with that because they understand that it's a small niche label. So they're like, yeah, like I want to learn. Because I mean, the best way to learn is through experience.
Yeah. Did you have other labels helping you? Did you reach out to anyone?
No, I did everything by myself.
Okay. Did you get advice from anyone? Like, did you reach out?
I think I reached out to Matt at Forged Artifacts.
Oh, nice.
But we never ended up setting up a call because we were both really busy at the time.
Right.
Because I emailed him being like, hey, help.
Yeah.
And then we were going to do a phone call and then like it didn't end up working out. But I kind of just watched what people were doing online. Like I went to labels that I liked. That like I even went to like websites of local labels that I liked, like small to mid level indies. So I went on their sites and I went on their social medias to see what they were doing and how they were doing it. And even like Forged Artifacts, like I went on their site a lot. I modeled my new site very much after theirs because it looks amazing, right? And the layout made sense. Like my previous website did not make sense. So then when I redid it, I went and like I looked at different websites and I was like, hey, it needs to be one that makes the most sense for a label.
Right.
Because I know how to make like a personal website, like a portfolio site, which is how it ended up looking in the beginning. But now the site makes a lot more sense.
Well, and Matt is a great guy, and he's also very generous with like helping people, helping artists, and helping labels. That's awesome.
I followed Get Better Records for a long time too, and like I kind of
I'd like to have them on the show.
Watch what they were doing. Yeah, they're really cool. They were doing it for like 10 years.
Yeah. I want to ask you a little bit about the artists, and you can maybe tell me a little bit about how they kind of came into the fold. But like, what do you look for in an artist, or when you're looking for someone to add to the roster?
I basically kind of just looking for somebody who's making interesting music that's true to them. You know what I mean? Oh yeah, sorry.
Do you have to go?
They caught me.
Thanks for doing the show.
I think when I hear the music, I pretty much just give it like 3 seconds to impress me.
Yeah.
And if within the first 3 notes I'm not caught on and I don't want to listen to the song again, then I'm like, well, it's not right. Yeah,
it's sad, but it's true.
Yeah, and even when I'm like looking for music to DJ with, like if I hear the first like 3 notes of the whatever of the beginning, I'm like, it has to grab me right away.
Yeah, right.
And I also like make people send me bios too. Like I used to just have people email me, and then I realized people were just emailing me links, and then I didn't know anything about them, but I needed to know who these people were, like if they were nice.
Yeah,
which would be the main thing.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to work with someone who's like horrible or like racist. Why would I do that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, they don't really put that in the bio, but yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I want it, and someone with at least a little bit of like social media presence, so it's easy to tag them and like see what kind of person they are.
Yeah, and even I totally agree. And I heard from this artist. I've been listening to an EP that's in the works from this new artist somewhere in Europe, and like the modern, especially the music that you work with, like the modern thing is for people to use like an alias and to have like no press photos of themselves, but just to have like kind of weird Japanese art or something. And so they send me the record and I listen to it. I'm like, this is great. I love this. Let's move forward. And then, but it's like, just tell me everything about, like, can you just send me a picture of your face so we can like, I can know there's a human there? And you know what I mean? It's like, I felt felt uncomfortable asking too much information. It's like, where'd you grow up? Like, I need to know a bit about you.
Yeah. Like you do have to know the people that you're bringing into, because it is, especially with small labels, like it is a small, tight little family.
Yeah.
It's good to know things about people, which is why, like, even though it's like exhausting, I try to keep up with all the artists and see what they're doing and what they're up to. Even though like they're all in different cities and doing. Well, I was going to ask that. I need to know.
So you're a Toronto-based label, and for people who don't know, Toronto is the home of the NBA championship team. But
Toronto's in Canada.
Toronto's in Canada, and Ontario is the province. Are you? You're not exclusively local artists then?
Yeah, when I first started, I wanted to be just Canadian artists, and then I was like, wow, there's like not anybody here.
Yeah, it's
doing what I'm trying to get them to do.
Yeah. Okay. So are you like worldwide or?
Yeah, pretty much. Like I've worked with artists in Latvia. One of our artists is based in Japan, but he's British. Our current, like my first few artists were like from around Ontario. So like Burlington, Ottawa, like smaller, or like, I guess Ottawa's not that small, but
it is kind of small.
Pretty boring. It's pretty boring though.
Very boring. Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's nothing there. But yeah, like kind of like Canadian towns. And there was like one guy from like downtown Toronto, and we had like met up a bunch of times in person, which was super helpful in the beginning.
Okay.
But now, like Carter, one of like our biggest artists, is in Philadelphia. And last year I went down to Philly with my buddy Kyle to shoot a music video for him.
Wow. Good for you.
Yeah, and Carter let us stay at his house. It was sick. I'd never been to Philadelphia. Yeah, Kyle and I took this awesome road trip, and Kyle's like disgusting 80s Oldsmobile that he did not tell me had no windshield wipers when it started pouring rain. So that was a super, super fun trip.
That's illegal.
I thought I was going to die. Yeah, but he was like, no, it's fine. Like I sprayed the stuff on it. The rain's just going to like slide off. I'm like, dude, that's not right.
Did you have trouble at the border?
No. I think on the way back, they checked our car because I had like boxes of white cheddar Cheez-Its in the trunk.
Okay.
But they didn't say anything about it.
Is that code for something?
No, I just like American snacks.
Yeah, no.
Every time I go to the States, I buy a bunch. Trick cereal, we don't have that here.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, no, there's a lot of good stuff down there. So sorry, I'm thinking about snacks. No, I was just kind of curious because I know like going down to the border for like quasi work related purposes could have been an issue. But that's well, great.
I lied.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, that's good.
Well, they gave us some issue. They were like, where are you going?
This is being recorded. I should let you know.
That's okay. I don't really visit the States that often. But like Kyle and I were in our car. We both like look pretty bad. Just because we were both like heavily tattooed and we look like deadbeats, and the car was from the 80s and it smelled like an ashtray. So like rough.
Yeah.
So we're pulling in through the border or whatever, and we give them our passports, and they're like, where are you going? We're like, Philadelphia. Like, why? Oh, we're visiting our friend. They're like, well, where do you live? Yeah, which was true. They were like, where do you live? And Kyle was like, well, I live in Hamilton. I'm like, I live in Toronto. And the guy was like, okay, so how do you know somebody in Philadelphia? And I was like, internet. Like, what?
Right. Yeah.
Like, it's 2019. He was like, what? You just go adding random people on the internet? And I was like, yeah. Like,
yeah, that's true. He sounds like one of your parents or something.
That's exactly what I do on the internet. I add random.
Yeah, that's what it's for.
I know. I was like, that's the only way I meet anybody is through the internet. But he was so weirded out about it. He's like, I don't understand. I'm like, look, just, can I please go? Like, I'm not going to do anything. And then, they let us go. But he was pretty sussed out about it. He was like, how do you know somebody lives in Philadelphia? But even so, like, it could have been like, I had a friend that I met in college in Toronto who moved to Philly. Like, it doesn't have to be that weird. Like, people know people from other places on the planet.
It seems like this may have been his first day at the job, because I feel like people traveling usually know somebody in a different city. Like, that should be a common thing.
It just doesn't make sense. Like, how do you know anybody? You can't only know the people where you're from.
Right.
That doesn't make sense at all. I mean, I guess it does in like a really small town.
Maybe you should have told him this person was your pen pal.
Yeah, my prison pen pal.
You wrote letters to him.
Yeah, I know. Maybe that would have been maybe sense. Then he would have been like, "What? You write letters to strangers on the internet?"
Well, he's very concerned. It sounds like he sounds like a nice father. So
no, he was mad about it. Like he was like, "What? You add people on the internet?" I think maybe he was gonna go home and like yell at his kid to be like, "No, do that.
Don't do this. Don't get tattoos. Don't drive an '80s car.
Yeah, don't smoke in the car."
So you went down, you filmed a music video. So, I mean, you know what? You're so right. And you're touching on a pretty relevant thing here. We're talking about the internet and meeting with people, because I've worked with an artist who I've never met, but yeah, I've just online when they lived in Seattle, then they moved to Nashville, then they moved to Carolina. And I've never met this person. We've known each other for well over 10 years, probably 15 years. And there's nothing weird about it. I mean, I love the guy, but there's nothing weird about it. I've never met him. And when somebody sends me a record, I really don't care where they're from. I mean, if it's an interesting city that we haven't covered or that is underrepresented, or a country that's underrepresented, that's a great thing. But for the most part, I really don't care.
Yeah, because it doesn't matter. Like in the age of the internet, you can release music from anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You can talk to people anywhere. The only challenge, I guess, would be like time zone.
Yeah, right.
If you're scheduling calls, which I like to do with everybody new, when they express interest in the label, I try to set up a phone call and like walk them through the process.
That's good advice. Yeah. Do you, can we talk about your genres? Like what do you have kind of a broad category of genre that you stick to?
Yeah, we'll just say, I say experimental electronic. It used to be mostly instrumental stuff. Like I tried to lean very heavily into that.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it still kind of is that, but I've definitely been exploring more like more tracks with vocals in them with some of my newer artists.
You're right.
So we are moving in a bit of a new direction, but the stuff that's going to be coming out in the summer is still pretty experimental. It's almost like, do you know the band The Books?
No.
Okay. Definitely check them out. But it's kind of like atonal experimental, like sample stuff. Like,
okay.
I personally didn't ever really want to release music with like that it was heavily focused with vocals.
Okay.
Unless they were used as samples or like instruments, right?
Yeah.
But this year I ended up kind of releasing more music like that, and it was great. Like I loved it. So, and I'm always open to new things for the label and ways for us to grow. Like you can't be closeting yourself in like a little category forever. You know what I mean? Like you have to go where the music goes, and you have to go naturally and grow naturally.
I was wondering if you were married to that genre, or, you know, if you're kind of flexible with it.
I mean, I'm definitely married to the idea of like prioritizing more experimental, weird music.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not as married to like pure instrumentals as I was when I originally started the label. And I think honestly, like in retrospect, looking back as to like why I was so set on that idea is probably because like I don't like to sing and I don't like to write lyrics and I don't like to do stuff with vocals. And I think because it was originally an idea to self-release, I was like, well, we're focusing on that.
Yeah.
To justify it.
My opinion with labels, and there's a varying opinions amongst the people I talk to on this podcast, but my opinion is I like a label to be fairly predictable when it comes to the genre, or their genre, because I kind of treat, and this is just my opinion, but I kind of treat a label like a restaurant. It's like I'm going there for this flavor, for this type of food. And, you know, and I love instrumental music, and it's found a huge home for me in my lifestyle. And it's weird to be on, to have a label that I normally go to, and then all of a sudden like a vocal record pops up. It kind of just throws me for a loop a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely, I don't know. Like, I think this year, a lot of the stuff that's scheduled and has been coming out has been pretty like ambient. But now for the second half of the year, the stuff that's coming out is definitely more glitchy and different and experimental. So it's a bit of a shift, but I still think that everything is very much in line with the type of stuff that the label's been releasing before. So I don't think that anything is going to pop off as like being particularly like weird or like a quote off-brand.
Well,
because like when you say experimental, like that can really go any way.
Yeah, right. No, that's true. And if it's curated by you, until the label is so big that it's curated by thousands of different employees, if it's always curated by you, if you like it and you like this deviation, then likely your fans are going to like it too.
Yeah, I hope so. And even if they don't, like, you know, who cares? Because new fans will, you know?
Yeah. But okay, so I wanted to ask you, speaking of the vocal music, because I think one of the vocal records you did was the Golden Gray record. That's a vocal record, right?
Yeah, so of the, I think, like 6 songs on the EP, 2 of them had vocals.
Okay. And I want to ask you about your first 7-inch. Was that your first 7-inch?
Yeah, it was our first physical release.
Oh, first ever. Physical. Oh, okay. What was that experience like?
Yeah. Fucking freaking expensive.
It's okay. You can see whatever you want.
I don't know if
it's expensive. Yeah.
Yeah, it was expensive.
It's daunting. It's intimidating. Vinyl.
Yeah,
is
it was
tough.
stressful.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know, because I'd never done vinyl before.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the hell? But luckily, I worked with some really good guys over at Liquor Donuts, and they really helped me out. Like Jay in particular, like helped me out with my millions and millions of questions.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it went great. It looks awesome. Sounds good. It was expensive, but I didn't like feel the cost as much because I'd saved up for it. So it wasn't like straight out of my bank account.
Right.
It was money that I set aside. And then what else?
Okay, wait.
Yeah, it was fun.
I want to ask you some specific questions here because I think you are at a position, and I've been at this position, and I've only done vinyl maybe 2 or 3 times, and I don't do it all the time. I do it maybe once every 2 years. It's a really tricky thing, and a lot of labels are at the same stage that we are, where they're like, I really want to do vinyl. I really want to do physical releasing. Even cassettes have a bit of investment. Okay, so I want to kind of camp out on this for a little bit. So you did a 7-inch. What was the packaging like for this?
Just like the folded envelope.
Okay, so it goes in a white paper sleeve, is that right?
No, it was like a full color envelope.
Oh, okay.
Colors, labels, stickers, like everything was full color, and then it had like the clear sleeve. I'm just pulling one out now.
Yeah, I want to see. I'm going to go to your Bandcamp. Do you have
I'll
a Bandcamp?
mail you one.
Oh, wow.
No, I don't have Bandcamp. It's on the website.
Okay.
But it was the paper sleeve, full color, but I mean the only color on it's like yellow.
Okay. And you printed on the sleeve.
Yeah, we
with
printed
the track
on the
listing
sleeve, and then we put the stickers, or like the label stickers on the actual record,
and their color labels.
Then the color labels,
okay.
Everything was color.
So the jacket must have been pretty expensive, right?
I don't think that, like, I wouldn't want to do a white label.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
I like that some dance labels, like I listen to a lot of house music and techno, and I really like that like Berlin European style of getting just a white jacket, and then like a color label, or even just a white label with like the information on it. I love that style. I think it's very cool. And I also like stuff that's very uniform from labels. Like they'll do the same design but like a different color for each release.
Yeah.
I love that too. I think it's really cool, but I don't know if that's something I want to do.
So you love that, but you didn't do that. You didn't just do the white paper sleeve.
No, I didn't. I don't even think about that, to be honest. Like I was like, it has to look good. It's our first release. Like I want it to look special. And
did you shrink wrap it?
No, I was going to, and then it didn't end up coming. So the guy just knocked off my price for it because I paid for it.
Oh, okay.
But I just got like the clear plastic sleeve. So at home, I sat down and individually packaged each one.
Oh, wow.
And I put a sticker in each one and everything.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. That must have been.
Yeah, it was like.
So did everything go well? Like with the printing and the music and the mastering, everything?
Yeah. We figured everything out. We answered. I had a lot of questions and they all got answered.
That's pretty lucky. I mean, that for your first time and like there's no typos, there's no glitches or anything. That's great. Yeah,
I know. But hopefully the next time, like maybe I'll learn something from it as well and do something a little bit differently.
Now this was this a couple months ago?
Yeah, we released this at the end of April.
Okay, so
or end of May, I can't remember.
Okay, so like how has it been so far looking back? Like, do you have regrets? Was this worthwhile investment? I know that nothing we do here is like, has a huge ROI, but like, how do you feel about it now?
I'm happy that I have it.
Mm-hmm.
It was a goal that I had to release. Sorry, I think I stopped recording. Oh my God.
Oh, okay. That's all right. I'm recording you.
Okay. Sorry.
That's okay.
You want me to start again?
Yeah, sure. Start it again. And then we'll just switch to my audio or something.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. We'll figure it out. But yeah, so what was the question again? Sorry.
Okay. So
do I have regrets?
Yeah, or regrets, or like, are you happy with how it went? Like, I know what you're saying. Like, it feels great. It's like a trophy to have in your hand.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like a trophy.
It's also good marketing for the label for people to see. Wow, they have a 7-inch.
I mean, I do have a regret. I regret doing a 7-inch and not a full 12-inch record because I didn't know this, but apparently a lot of record stores just won't stock the 7-inch.
Oh, really?
Because apparently no one buys them anymore. And if I knew that, I would have invested more money and just put out the whole album.
Interesting. So you brought them by to some record stores and they just said no thank you?
Yeah, like they were like, yeah, we don't sell those like because nobody buys them.
Oh. I mean, that's I kind of get that. I mean, as a record collector myself, I don't really I mean, if they come free in a deluxe thing, or if it's at a show or something, but yeah, for the most part, I kind of get that. Wow, that's a shock. Yeah,
I know,
it
was like a shock to me for sure. I was like, oh damn.
Oh, I wish you told me that a month ago.
Right, I had no idea, but it's okay. You live and you learn.
Well,
I got a bunch into shops as well. Like I got a bunch into different shops. So
the artist must have been stoked. Like, did the artist have some?
Yeah, I sent Golden Gray like 70 or something.
Oh, that's nice.
So he has some up in like Alberta, and he has been dropping them off of his local record stores and stuff like that as well.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, and you've touched on something really interesting with the cost. Is that I've looked into 7-inches because what you do is you go to these price calculators on the pressing plant website, and you put together a 12-inch, and you're like, okay, that's going to be $2,000, $3,000, and then you're like, well, now maybe I should just do a 7-inch. I can't afford, and then you put together a 7-inch, and it's like $1,000 or $1,500, and so it's like, I know what you're saying. It's like, well, maybe I should have just paid the extra 30% or whatever and got the whole record. And, I get that.
Yeah, that's like kind of the thing, but I didn't know. And the price difference was fairly significant at the time, like for me. And honestly, it still is. Like, I'd love to do a full album, but will I have the money to put out a full album in the next like year or two? Like, vinyl's expensive. Why not just do a cassette?
Mm-hmm.
Right, and pay like $1 a cassette.
Yeah, I love cassettes. I love cassettes.
I love cassettes too.
And I think what we're talking about, and I've seen you say this before online about how like, and a lot of people kind of share this sentiment of like that physical release of just having this record that was made either digitally or analog plus digital, and then to just finally have it out with its artwork. It feels like such an accomplishment.
Yeah, like it feels awesome to hold it. I definitely want to do more physical releases. Like it was a big deal for me to do a physical release for the label. I really wanted that to happen this year. And so I am super proud of it.
Mm-hmm.
And now I kind of like want to have the bug. I got to do more.
Yeah. Oh, I know. It's an expensive bug.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
But I think I mean, tapes for me, and there's a whole, conversation of tapes and there's a critique of tapes. And I've been an apologist for tapes for quite some time. But I think one of the great things is that when you are doing these like price breakdowns on websites for vinyl, and it's like, okay, I'm going to get 200 copies. It's going to cost me, $2,500. And so like, I'm basically like can't break even unless I sell all of them, for a lot of money. And then you do the same breakdown for cassettes. And it's like, oh, I can do 20 of them at $3 each.
Yeah, that's the thing too with like the pricing with the 7 inch. Like there was no way for me to price it at a competitive cost for the like to and not lose money. Like when
Yeah.
I buy a 7 inches, they're like $10 or $12 max. I had to sell mine for 15,
Oh, okay.
which I think is also something that was hindering me. I don't know. Maybe I'll lower the price. Like
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. And I
I don't even care about making money. I just want like the money back so
I
I
agree.
can buy
Yep.
more physicals.
My latest record I did on cassette, and I did 25 copies, and I just sold out this week, and I sold them for I think maybe but like $8. And so like basically I broke even because I only did 25 copies. The cost per was quite high. I'm probably, if I sold it in US dollars, I probably ended up making a tiny profit, but I didn't care. It was like almost just like a promotion for the album.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't, and it was just, I wanted to have one in my collection. So and that's the other thing too, is like when you price it in such a way, you have to sell all of them. You can't give any to your friends or keep any for yourself or otherwise there's no way of you breaking even.
Yeah, I mean, I had set aside some budget for like promo copies, because like that's just part of it, like mailing them to blogs and radio stations and stuff like that. But yeah, it is something to think about. Like like I have a couple stuff coming out later in the year, like September, October, that is going to be really small cassette runs, and I have to like think about how I'm going to do it because obviously I want one, the artist wants one, but beyond that, they're not going to get any promo copies because if I'm making 25 or 50, like each one is precious.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because 25 or 50, they're like probably $6 or $7 each.
Yeah, I have to make like I can price them as like no profit, but I still need the money back.
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
manufacturing.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I try to make a little bit of profit because I do split that with the artists.
Yeah.
Like after I get my manufacturing cost back, like whatever extra, because I keep track of my bookkeeping. Like I want to be able to give some of the profit to Golden Gray,
right?
Because it's his music, it's his artist,
yeah,
it's his
absolutely,
art.
Absolutely. Well, and hopefully, I mean, it depends on how they play live, but I feel like 7 inches still can be a way for somebody for $10 to take something home and show their support to an artist at a live show.
Yeah, and that's another good thing about Golden Gray. Like when I recently did a blog post on Biblioteka Records, like website, that I interviewed a couple of like other labels asking for tips on how to run a label. And the people from Versus Records told me that when you're releasing physical, you should do it with artists who tour.
Right.
Because they will take it to the shows, they will sell it at the shows. Like that's where merch moves, which is true. And I didn't think about that, but I think, yes, it is good that our first physical release was with Golden Ray because I know that he plays shows in Alberta.
Right. Well,
so it is good.
And it's so true. I have two. I was just going to say to that point about touring, like there's two artists that have been on our label who will have sold a couple hundred, like, and this is in the last like 3 or 4 years, will ask for me to make like a couple hundred CDs of their records and their singer-songwriters, because like people still buy it at shows and their family buys it. And so like, it's just surprising. Even like college age people will still like show support and buy a $10 CD.
Yeah. You'd be surprised. Like I always find it's the people that are like deep in the scene that are willing to support. Like I will sometimes buy tickets to parties that I can't go to just to like support the people putting them on because I know how hard it is.
Good for you. Speaking of how hard it is, like aside from cash and finances, like what are some other struggles you've experienced?
It's like getting people to care.
Right. Like you mean, are we talking press or are we talking music fans?
Like both, I guess. I think that's...
No, I hear you.
That's something that I kind of... But I feel like that's what every creative person struggles with, like getting people to listen and then like actually give a shit.
Yeah.
Press too, like I'm not the best at PR. I do my best, but I can't afford a PR agency. So again, like it's all me. It's hard to do everything by myself. Like I do the whole label alone. I would love to be able to have another person helping me out. I can't pay them.
Yeah.
And I don't want to ask somebody to do that for free. Like I can't pay me. I do the label full time. Like I don't have a job.
Wow.
The label and my live performances and DJing are the only way I make money.
Wow.
And like, okay, and then I'll work at like the club a couple nights a week. But
Sure.
like, again, I don't make money off the label. I lose money
Oh,
on
yeah.
the label.
Oh yeah, you're preaching the choir. Yeah, for sure.
Right, but like I have to do it because it's the only thing I want to do, and it's like, and I'm good at it, and it makes me happy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll take a bunch of random corporate gigs for DJing, not post them on Instagram, and take the money to invest it in my project.
Yes.
Of course I will.
Yes.
Like it's the sacrifices you have to make when you really want to make it your living. And I feel so much better now not working 9 to 5 anymore. Because I feel like since I stopped working 9 to 5 in the last like 2 months, I've made more progress in the label than I have in the last like 2 years.
Yeah.
Since I started it, because I'm able to devote so much more time to it.
And so much more like psychologically as well. Like there's just
yeah,
more.
like I can, yeah, I'm like much more invested on it on a deeper level. Like when before, like I cared, but I didn't have the physical energy to care as much as I do now.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, I'm in the same position. I mean, I've been in the same position, and I worked a 9 to 5 a few years back, and there was just, I mean, there's so many small like things, like you get sick more often because you're working hard and you're amongst a bunch of snotty people, and there's just all these things that just kind of keep getting in the way of the label, and to be able to sit back and kind of clear your mind and focus mentally and physically.
Yeah, just like do the work.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, like I was working 9 to 5, and then Fridays and Saturdays I was working at the club till 5 in the morning, or I'd like have shows. Like it sucked. I was super tired and super mad all the time. And then even on my days off or like in the evenings when I'd come home from work, I didn't want to work on the label. I didn't want to work on music stuff because I'd be so burnt out from, staring at the bad screen at work all day.
Yeah. What kind of things, like, we're talking about these struggles and the finances are a problem for sure, and investing in physical stuff, and then getting people to listen to when it comes to the blogs and when it comes to just the general public. What are the things that motivate you? Like what happens in a given week that, puts gas in your tank?
I just love doing it. I like organizing things. I like making people feel like they have support behind them and their music, because I know what it feels like to not have that. But I also know what it feels like when someone does believe in you. Like, I want to be that person. I like showing people, and on top of that, I also really like showing people new music. Like, I want someone to be like, to listen to music that comes off the label and be like, wow, that's awesome. That makes me feel good. And then I can like text the artist and be like, somebody just told me that they love your album or like your song. It just makes me feel good to help other people get their music out there in front of even a slightly bigger audience. And like, I like music. I don't know. I like it. And it's a thing too. Like, I like organizing things. I like spreadsheets, and I like emails.
I'm the same. I know what you mean.
The admin stuff is fun for me too.
We could talk, and I want to go back to something you said, but we can talk about the whole like philosophy and the whole like inspiration and passion of music and art. But at the end of the day, I know what you mean. Like when I have to open up Google spreadsheets or whatever, like I don't mind. Like it's fun.
Yeah, like, I mean, like, it sucks because it's time consuming, but it's fun. I like looking at the analytics. I like data. I like stats.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean.
It's a...
I thinking about kind of, just as you're talking, it kind of just dawned on me, and it's not, this is not necessarily true for everyone, but talking to you, like, it's interesting running a label for you, and I would say, hopefully for other people, that it comes out of this place of generosity, and I think it's a really cool thing, and I hope for you that it and for everyone that that you're rewarded for that, because you're talking about not just helping the general public find good music, because that's a great thing, but also these artists who have no one, who don't necessarily even have the support of their friends or their family, but now to have some, possibly a stranger, believe in them and literally invest in them. I think that's such a great thing. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, it's back to what I said in the beginning. Like, I kind of try to vet the people that come in the label, and I'm very selective about who I let join, because I want someone that can be part of the family. And if you can't hang, then like, you can't hang. If you're not nice, I don't care how good your music is.
Yeah. No, absolutely. If you can't crash at their house in Philadelphia, then forget about it.
Right? Like I feel like everybody that is on the label, if they came through Toronto and need a place to stay, they could stay with me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if I'm not getting that like vibe from somebody, then like I don't care if your music slaps. Like you can be someone else's problem or someone else's success.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I would say that about 92% of the people on my label too. You can come and stay at my house. There's a couple guys.
Yeah, but the other 8%, fuck you guys.
Forget it. Take a shower.
Yeah, but that's like an indie thing too anyway, right?
Hey, listen, congrats on the label. I think it's so cool. I'll be following you forever. Thank you for doing this.
I'll be following you forever. Thank you so much, because I like the podcast. And I was like, when are they going to ask me, or should I email them and ask them myself?
There you go. There you go. Yeah, you should. Well, thanks so much for doing this. It's been a ton of fun. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Remember, for some help in navigating this world of running an indie label or being a DIY artist, I want you to check out this free guide that we've got. Go to otherrecordlabels.com and download it. It's I think you'll really enjoy it. Thanks so much for listening. You know, speaking of one thing I mentioned to Sophie at the end of the episode was how she was talking about emailing me, and she did email me to get on this podcast, and I'm so glad she did. And that's been happening a lot. I've been getting some emails from people from big and small labels who want to be on the show, and also some people who are sending me recommendations of labels. That's all been great. I've been following up with that as fast as I can. We have episodes planned and recorded deep into the future. So you can feel free to email me anything, suggestions or questions or whatever you have at podcast@otherrecordlabels.com, and leave a review on iTunes. There's some spooky algorithm stuff that's really helpful, and tell people about this show. That would really help as well. Thanks for listening.